Now we have some elements of legal consolidation to discuss.
After lengthy negotiations, Belgium joins the 27 other EU governments and agrees to support the EU-Canada trade deal. Thousands of people are forced from their homes while the battle to reclaim Mosul from the militant group ISIS rages on. Toronto FC makes history with its first playoff win.
Game 1 of 82.
And the Toronto Raptors win the season opener against the Detroit Pistons.
Hi, and welcome to Humber News. I'm Hunter Crowther, coming to you from our newsroom here at Humber College North Campus. A breakthrough in the trade agreement between Canada and the EU has put it back on track. The Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement would remove 98% of tariffs on goods and services between countries. Press swarmed Belgian officials at an announcement in Brussels to confirm a consensus has been reached on the trade agreement. Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel and Foreign Minister gave the joint press conference today. Justin Trudeau was scheduled to appear in Brussels to sign the agreement, but he canceled the trip after a region of Belgium vetoed the deal earlier this week. Canada's International Trade Minister's office says Canada is ready to sign the agreement when Europe is ready. In Iraq, civilians are fleeing the town of Bashika ahead of an expected assault against the militant group ISIS by Kurdish forces. Residents of the town near Mosul were led to refuge behind Kurdish lines by soldiers. Men and women holding white flags led by herds of sheep to safety. Bashika is a key point on the approach to Mosul, with no other towns between them and the area. Some families from the 30 villages evacuated around Mosul have been separated, but were recently reunited at a camp. International aid organizations say they're extremely concerned about children still at the Calais refuge camp called The Jungle. The camp was demolished yesterday, but lives of hundreds of children are still up in the air. Thousands of migrants lined up for hours to register for asylum in France and the UK, among them over 1,500 minors. Shipping containers have been set up to house children temporarily, but hundreds were forced to sleep outside because the containers were full. Children registration centers closed early, adding to the chaos, and child organizations are urging French officials to help the children and want English authorities to accept more unaccompanied minors into the country. Italy is facing aftershocks after another earthquake following one just 2 months ago. There is major damage done in central Italy after an earthquake hit overnight. Italy's Civil Protection Agency says while no deaths have been reported, there were dozens of injuries. Residents took to shelters while rescuers supplied necessities. Italy's last earthquake in August killed nearly 300 people in the same area. A new report says 2/3 of the world's wildlife population as it existed in 1970 could be gone by the year 2020. The report comes from the World Wildlife Foundation. It says the reason for the loss is human activity. Pollution, loss of habitat, and growing climate change have made it difficult for some wildlife to survive. In May, a committee on the status of endangered wildlife in Canada determined that we have 739 wildlife species at risk. Our reporters are working on the story, and we'll have full details tomorrow. And another new report shows Canadian women earn 65 cents for every dollar earned by men. The annual report by the World Economic Forum shows Canada has slipped to 35th in the world for pay equity. Last year it was 30th overall on a list of 114 countries. Iceland is at the top of the list, but the wage discrepancy is still 14 cents. The US stands at 45, while Yemen is at the bottom of the list. Here at home, some troubling news after a police search turned up hand grenades, guns, drugs, and ammunition in Scarborough last night. But a spokesperson for Toronto Police says there's no danger to anyone in the area. The grenades were found inside a home near Birchmont Road and Lawrence Avenue East. They were turned over to the Canadian Armed Forces. Police obtained a search warrant, then carried out the operation around 5:30 yesterday. The police bomb disposal unit was called to the scene and removed the grenades. The discovery prompted the evacuation of houses on either side. Residents of the homes were required to wait on a heated TTC bus while the explosives were removed. Toys were found on the front lawn during the search, and neighbors say children live there. 30-year-old Arthur DeRocha is charged with 13 counts of possession of an explosive substance and 1 count of possession of a loaded firearm, among other weapons charges. It was a big night for sports as Toronto sports teams and as TFC earned its first playoff win in franchise history, and the Raps opened up their season strong at home against the Detroit Pistons.
So great to have you. Game 1 of 82.
The Raptors come out strong against the rival Detroit Pistons as DeMar DeRozan netted the first 40 points of the game of the season. The game ended in an 18-point victory for the Raps. Meanwhile, Toronto FC hosted its first playoff game on home field. Star striker Sebastian Ginovenko and Jonathan Osorio both netted goals to give TFC the win. With Halloween coming up, Ignite is throwing a Monster Mayhem party tonight. And if you're planning on going or just dressing up, Ignite has some guidelines for what's appropriate. Natalie Dixon is at Humber College's North Campus getting the details on this. Hey Natalie, what's going on over there?
Hi Hunter, I'm in the Student Center where Ignite staff have been setting up and promoting tonight's big event, giving out free popcorn and flyers. It looks like students are anticipating the big Halloween bash happening at Le Jardin. Ignite's Halloween party is supposed to be a night of fright and mischief. The Monster Mayhem encourages students to dress in their best costumes as there will be a costume contest with prizes. But along with the typical student code of conduct, students are also expected to follow costume guidelines this year. Within the first 5 bullet points on the Ignite website, it tells students that culture is not a costume.
Even something that is my culture, it's something I wouldn't wear unless it was earned, and I think that goes with any other thing, any other item that someone would wear as a costume that isn't theirs.
Students are also not allowed to wear full-face masks or bring any type of weapon, real or fake.
I find a lot of people use Halloween just to dress inappropriately, and it's not right. Halloween's meant to just be scary, I guess, because the reason for Halloween is to scare the bad spirits away.
The Monster Mayhem is set to get underway at 9 o'clock tonight. Buses will be running from North and Lakeshore campuses for both Humber and Guelph Humber students. And don't worry, if you haven't got your ticket yet, they're still available for $5 each. Natalie Dixon, Humber News. Back to you in the newsroom, Hunter.
Thanks, Natalie. When we come back, we'll tell you what's happening in the world of sports, and Lindsay will have your 3-day forecast.
I hope you guys have your umbrellas out because today is going to be cold and windy. I'll have your 3-day forecast after the break.
After 2 years of extraordinary volcanic eruptions, 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Japan, an island has risen from the rocks and ashes. The spectacular isle is bigger than the state of Monaco. Researchers are trying to figure out how exactly the volcanic island formed. They're also observing the first colonization of the land. Large safariing birds called masked gannets. Studying volcanoes is a high priority for Japan as the country lies within the Ring of Fire, a region home to more than 100 active volcanoes.